let me begin, Ben, with my assessment, something I wrote on Twitter I want to get your reaction to, and then talk about it. The vast majority of GOP voters and I suspect most independents and some Democrats both reject the legitimacy of and deeply resent the interference in the 2024 election by Jean Carroll, Letitia James, and the weird judge, Alvin Bragg, Fannie Willis, Jack Smith 1, Jack Smith 2, the Colorado Supreme Court, and the Maine Secretary of State. Whatever a voter thinks of the merits or absence of merits on any one or more of these proceedings, the undeniable Gatling gun of courtroom proceedings against the former president throughout 2023 and accelerating just as voting begins has solidified a strongly held view on both the center right and among conservatives that elites are using lawfare to disturb the 2024 vote, and as COVID was used to disturb the 2020 vote. What do you think, Ben? Am I nuts?
I don't think you're nuts. I think that that's a suspicion that a lot of people share, and I think that when it comes to independent voters, in my own experience, the ones who I talk to regularly, and I would say that that's mostly who I talk to, that is something that is expressed quite regularly, usually in some form of, man, they're really trying to take him out, or something like that. It's a feeling of an expression of kind of shock at the sheer scale of it. And I think that, I can't remember if we discussed this on your program or not, back several months ago, but one of the things that I pointed out, almost a year ago now, is it really seems to me that they should have put more of their eggs in one basket as opposed to letting all these different prosecutions and pursuits that are clearly designed, mostly out of the political interests of the prosecutors involved, of the figures involved, that they should have really just stuck to a more narrow focus if they really wanted to send a message that they were serious about this and that this was not a politically motivated attempt to destroy their strongest political opponent. And I think that their mistake in going as far as they did is, one, if the actual craven motive was to boost Donald Trump's stature within the primary, to basically decide that he's going to be the nominee by focusing on him. And I personally don't think that was actually the case, even though
I don't think it's a conspiracy. I just think it's a cumulative effect of people are weary of this crap, and it's helped Trump.
And they feel that whether it's conspiracy or not, this is something that is really untoward. And I think that actually the kind of final straw were these attempts to start removing him from the ballot.
Yeah.
And I think that for any independent voter who has, and people pretend like these people don't exist, but they actually are the most critical population when it comes to deciding who ends up being the president. For the independent voter who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 because they didn't like Hillary and then voted for Joe Biden, and there are a lot more of them, by the way, than I think people understand, that's something that absolutely turns them off. Because they voted perhaps for Biden because they believed, they were just exhausted after, the COVID and the George Floyd summer and everything else and that came with the chaotic nature of the Trump years. And they just I just want to get back to normalcy. I just want to not care who the president is. And then they look around here, almost 4 years later, and they say, this doesn't feel like normalcy at all. They're trying to take him off the ballot. They're saying the guy that I voted for in 2016 is unacceptable to vote for. And that's something that I think absolutely turns them off.
And we believe in self-rule. I watched the Colorado Secretary of State embarrass herself on CNN last night. The Maine Secretary of State is this ACLU MoveOn.org activist. And the idea that bureaucrats are going to decide, and judges, who we vote for, it's deeply offensive. Second thing I need your reaction to, there is a supplemental. It's got money for Taiwan, money for Israel, money for Ukraine, and it's got something in the border on here. My opinion, again, Twitter. Top headline, New York Times, how Biden's immigration fight threatens his biggest foreign policy win. The wide open border is killing Joe Biden's reelection, I write. And if the GOP stands by the demand for 900 miles of wall, authorized notwithstanding any other law and funded, it will win in the fall. The GOP must make the security of the United States a central issue of the 2024 election, and that starts with this supplemental bill with aid for Israel, Taiwan, Ukraine, and the border. Speaker Johnson has to get the 900 miles of wall. Now, they want to give us other things, Ben, and I've talked to senators on and off the record. They want to give us parole changes in the... I want the 900 miles of wall because it's the signal among the noise. Where are you on this, and am I going to get my way? No deal or 900 miles of wall?
Well, first off, I am, I think we've discussed before, I'm 100% with you on this. I think, again, this is a binary. It either exists or it doesn't. and it's something that Americans can look at and say, okay, all right, now that we've done that, then we can discuss all these other things. But unless it exists, there's no point. Secondly, I don't think you're going to get what you want on this, and I think that Republicans are very unwise in giving the Biden administration the semblance of a win on something like this when it is such a critical issue and it's not going to make things better. It's not going to improve things. And I think that alone should be, a non-starter. Unfortunately, I think that, you have, look, Speaker Johnson seems like a nice fellow. I've met him a couple times. He obviously did not have any kind of experience negotiating big packages like this beforehand. And I think that you see that lack of experience reflected a bit in the approach here. But also I think the decisions about who we put in there from the Senate side were also ones that were questionable in terms of, the negotiating approach that we've had. And that's something that I think is going to be a real damage for Republicans if they end up kind of giving their voters less than half a loaf even on this.
It's not even a quarter loaf.
It's
going to kill McCormick in Ohio. It's going to kill in Pennsylvania. It's going to kill Ohio. It's going to kill Sheehy in Montana, Kerry Lake in Arizona, our guy in Nevada.
Why are you throwing a lifeline to Sherrod Brown? I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Why do we not get a speaker who goes out and says, look, I'll sign this thing if it's got 900 miles of wall? They don't even know how to define how to win. It's like they don't know how to play poker, Ben.
I don't think that they understand the way that this is, and it's funny because the people who are most passionate about this issue, and obviously, I've known a lot of them for a long time, these border-focused people who understand the differences involved here. I just think that for a lot of folks who have not been paying attention to the way these negotiations go, they don't know how to define victory in a public-facing way.
Exactly.
Stick to that line. And that's what you've got to do in order to – this is basic approaches to politics. You have to define what victory looks like from your own perspective for your own people and then hold the line on that.
Can you explain that again? There's senators listening. This is the key thing. They do not know how to do what Ben is talking about. Explain that again, Ben Domenech.
It's very simple. You can't let the other side define victory for you. You have to define victory yourself, and then you have to hold your people to that line and repeat it over and over in a public-facing manner so that people have a clear understanding of what your aim is and what the other side is preventing. And unless you do that, you allow the other side to determine in their own mishigas, their own, sort of meandering language, what the definition of a good step forward is, or a positive, thing on good, we're working together to make sure that these border issues are addressed. No, you can't do that. You have to define victory and then hold the line on it.
Ben, I wish you would send that to every single senator. Right now, they've defined victory as changes to the parole rules and some asylum procedures. It will destroy the party. I think Republicans like me who are moderate on immigration, we just can't take 8 million people in 3 years. We can't. I'm going to talk about this after the break. Moderates on immigration will say, that's it, I'm done. Because
Jamie Dimon's one of the smartest guys who's in, in his field, and when he's saying, hey, Trump was pretty much right about immigration, that should tell you something about where the moderate line now exists in terms of that policy.
And it's not that hard for Speaker Johnson, and I think you're right about experience, to come out and say, I don't ask for much. You build me my 900 miles of wall and give me a couple other things, and I'm good. If he said that 100 times, we would have won already.
Yeah, I think that that's something that just speaks to, we have people who we thrust into these roles who don't necessarily have the experience of having to go down these roads and define these packages in terms that people can understand, bills that the average American is never going to read or pay much attention to. But until you actually make that definition yourself, you allow the other side to define it for you.
So, Ben, quick, I saw you mentioning Robert O'Brien, Ambassador O'Brien, as the vice presidential nominee yesterday. I also think that's pretty shrewd. Cotton, Gallagher, there are a few others. What are the odds you put on O'Brien being the VP?
Oh, I think it's pretty low, but I think he would be pretty suited to the moment. Let's put it that way.
I know Arizona and Nevada, being a member of the LDS would matter a lot. It's going to be a close election. We shall see. B. Domenech on X. Thank you, Ben Domenech. Have a great weekend.